Welcome. This news brief for Santa Clara residents is for the weeks following February 25th, 2011. Today we're going to talk about the big read. The big read. You'd think that might mean reading every book in the library or maybe a giant book. Well, in this case, the big read means that Santa Clara City Library wants a bunch of us to read Jack London's The Call of the Wild and join in an area-wide discussion at more than 20 events taking place at the city's libraries, museums, at Mission College, and Santa Clara University. Now, you might be thinking, the whole community reading the same book together? Sounds kind of interesting, but why The Call of the Wild? Well, for those of you that have forgotten since you wrote that book report decades ago, or, like me, you haven't read it yet, the book opens in Santa Clara, and a crucial scene takes place at a nearby train depot. Plus, it turns out Jack London hung out in Santa Clara. Now is the big read making sense? Sounds kind of cool, huh? Let's go find out more. Local history librarian Mary Hannell knows more than pretty much everybody about the city of Santa Clara's history. That's why we took some time to learn more about the Santa Clara connections in The Call of the Wild. Mary, tell us a little bit about those connections that Jack London and Call of the Wild have with Santa Clara.
Yeah, well, the very first connection was Jack London joined the Klondike Gold Rush, which was the most important story in the world in 1897 when the novel opens. And not only he, but in Santa Clara there were two brothers, Marshall and Louis Bond, young men like Jack London, that also rushed to Alaska to try to find gold in the Klondike. And when in Alaska, the Bond boys had a nice log cabin, and they bought a beautiful dog that they called Jack. Well, Jack London, who was in much poorer circumstances, had come from Oakland. He had just a tent, and he got to talking to the brothers, and they got along famously, and they offered to let him pitch his tent near their cabin, and then he very much admired their beautiful dog. And none of that group, none of them found gold, and about probably 1898 or 99, they returned home. The Bond boys to Santa Clara, Jack London to Oakland.
So he had all these great experiences up in Alaska. Tell us how he combined those experiences to start writing the book, The Call of the Wild.
Well, Jack London had lots of ideas for stories from that book, but one of them was the book that became The Call of the Wild. And while he was writing it in Oakland, he would sometimes take the train down. He had to see the Bonds and another family he knew in Santa Clara Valley. And when he saw the Bond place, I believe it must have inspired him, because when you read the first chapter of the book and you look at pictures that are on museums in Santa Clara, you say, wow, this is the estate he's describing. And the Bond estate is located where the Carmelite monastery is now. The house had been torn down except for the porch. But anyway, he would see that. And then, of course, the dog that the Bonds had inspired him too. And the setup, the way the dog roamed on the estate, and even the little dogs that the Bond brothers and their father, Judge Hiram Bond, had, were inspirations. And chapter 1 is, you're right in Santa Clara in chapter 1 of this book.
Wow. I understand that he would often ride the train down to Santa Clara. Can you go into a little bit about that connection that brings the book closer to the city of Santa Clara?
Actually, from times past, he had known this Applegarth family, actually from the Oakland Public Library and other places, but the Applegarths moved to a house very close to College Park, where College Park Station is now. So he was in the habit of taking the train down to visit them. And then, if you know how the trains run, there's College Park Station, and the next depot is Santa Clara Station, which is not far from the Bond estate. He had many girlfriends over the course of his lifetime, but one of the ladies that he had a crush on was Mabel Applegarth, who was Ted Applegarth's sister, and that's who he was visiting. And actually, during the time he was writing the novel, he still had a crush on Mabel Applegarth. That changed later, but she was more of a crush than a serious girlfriend. But he had maintained a friendship with her for the rest of his life, and his first wife was actually a very close friend also of Ted and Mabel Applegarth. And Mabel Applegarth happens to be buried in our own Mission City Memorial Park, which is the cemetery that the city of Santa Clara owns. And consequently, one of our programs will be a cemetery walk to find her grave.
Interesting. Now, I understand too, you mentioned the porch at the Bond house.
Yes.
And I understand that porch still exists.
It does. The house was, Judge Bond sold the house to actually Judge Phelan, who built the monastery. And the nuns lived in the Bond house for a while, but when the monastery cloisters were built, the house got torn down, but it had a beautiful porch around it. That porch was saved in 1917 and bought by a farmer in the Jefferson district of Santa Clara named Alfred Brown, and it got attached to his house, which is now known as the Jameson Brown House. That house, in turn, got moved from the Jefferson district near the Triton Museum and City Hall, but the porch that was on the Bond house is now attached to the Jameson Brown House, which still exists.
Tell us, in a nutshell, how all this comes together with someone that's going to be reading this book.
Well, what is nice about this book is that people that are reading it, they'll be able to join book discussion groups at the Railroad Depot, at the Jameson Brown House, at the Carmelite Monastery, places that are associated with the first chapter in this book. And that's pretty incredible that you can sit on the porch that Jack London sat on, or you can, they'll allow us into the monastery, which is often closed, and let us have a book discussion group there, and so forth. And then hopefully you'll learn about an important event in world history, which was the Klondike Gold Rush as well.
Thanks very much, Mary. It's amazing to hear all this good history, and it's also neat to have the connection. We hope that the big read is very successful. Now that we understand the significance of the book being read for the big read, to learn more about the program, we're here with the City of Santa Clara Library Foundation and Friends Director, Maria Dane.
Hello.
Maria, thanks for talking to us about what's going to happen during the big read.
My pleasure.
What's up? What's going on?
So we are going to have over 20 events throughout the community for people to learn and enjoy about the big read. We'll start off with a kickoff on March 16th at Mission College. March 22nd and 23rd, we have keynote presentations at the library. We have a sled dog demonstration on April the 2nd at the Triton Museum.
Wow, cool.
And then we have various book discussions and other smaller events all throughout that time period.
Wow. Now, how did all this come about, and how is it supported? I mean, it's a lot of work, I would think.
It's been fun. The National Endowment for the Arts created the Big Read program to get people throughout the country reading classic American literature. So about a year ago, the library staff and I approached community partners to see who'd be willing to partner with us on the Big Read, and it ended up that about 15 different organizations in Santa Clara, including Mission College, Santa Clara University, California Legacy Project, Santa Clara Unified School District, and the Triton Museum, among others, were all willing to partner with us. And we were thrilled to be granted the money from the National Endowment for the Arts.
Wow, very good. What more could you tell people about how to be involved in the effort?
Well, you can come to the library and pick up a free book here while supplies last. You can also download copies of the book. It's in the public domain, so you can get it onto your Kindle or an audio version onto your iPod. Or you can pick up a free copy at the Mission College kickoff, and then come and enjoy some of the events that we're doing.
Very good. I hope that it's very successful, because I know you work so hard, and it sounds like a fun program.
Well, thanks. We hope to see you at the events.
Thank you. I'm going to be there.
Okay, good.
So here we are at the famous porch that Jack London sat on. It's right here at the Jameson Brown House, right near City Hall. You can participate in Santa Clara's Big Read by getting a free book at the kickoff, joining in on one of the book discussions around town, like here at the Jameson Brown House, or attending one of over 20 other events at the library, Mission College, Santa Clara University, or the Triton Museum of Art, and other locations. You can find out more by visiting the Santa Clara City Library's website and clicking on the Big Read link. Thank you for watching online and on MCTV Channel 15. We'll see you next time.